don't assume that everyone else in your business understands what you're doing. So take the time to listen to other people and take the time to communicate and collaborate with the other people in your teams and the other stakeholders in your business and take them on the journey.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
I mean, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the consistent relationship between them. I'm Mark Stivian. Our guest today is Neil Fitzgerald, and here are 3 things you want to know about Neil before we start. He is the Director of Pricing and Revenue Management at Lindblad Expeditions. Oh, that's right. I forgot I was going to ask him a question about that. He was Pricing and Revenue Manager at Princess Cruises for a long time. Now, tell me we're not all curious. And believe it or not, he was a city councilman in the UK. So he was actually a politician. I'm so glad that he left that life. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous today. How'd you get into pricing?
So I went to university to study history, and I was working part-time in a suit shop, tailoring people, waiting for my degree. And I went on holiday and I came back and found out the shop was going to close down. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I'd actually worked in the call center before. So I got a job working for P&O Cruises in the UK, just making bookings. And I got my degree results through, and there was the opportunity to go on a training scheme program to become a manager in customer services. And I was like, I enjoy this, but I don't know if I want to be in customer service. And one of the managers there said, well, my husband's a commercial manager at Ocean Village Holidays, which is a cruise brand that was in the UK that's now defunct. She was like, maybe you want to have a chat with him if you want to do the more business side of things. So I had a chat with him. And so I joined as an assistant, and I was managing the ship inventory and the cabin allocations and what have you. And I just really enjoyed being involved. And then I started doing, last minute pricing to fill the beds last minute on the ship. Then I did strategic pricing and then campaign pricing and campaign management and just worked my way through. And I learned on the job.
Nice. Well, don't we all? We all fall into the pricing world. Those of us who are in it. So you said you were in a pricing conference last week, and I don't know if this is a fair question because you've been in the travel industry most of your career. So how do you think pricing for travel is different than pricing for anything else?
So it was interesting because, the conference was dominated by AI and pricing algorithms and data science. And that's something which in my industry, we've been using for years. I mean, I was involved in a project to get a new pricing and revenue management system. And we were talking about that in 2016. And this went live in 17, 18. And so we were talking about, pricing algorithms, elasticity, demand models a while ago. And I feel as if in the last couple of years, particularly since COVID, other businesses have now caught up to that. And so I found that really interesting because I'm sat there and I'm like, I know we've been talking about all of these things. And it's interesting because in my role now, this is a new role. My company didn't have a pricing director before, so it's new. But I know there's a lot of people who are building out these pricing systems and trying to sell companies these pricing systems that, are going to take care of the day-to-day pricing. And I always caution on that. I don't know if you do too, because I say that pricing is really, it's the art and the science. You can't leave it to a computer and you can't leave it to data scientists. You have to have an understanding of the overall business too.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that you have to know why things are happening. I know a lot of the AI companies or the pricing companies that are doing AI are trying to do something they're calling transparent AI or something to that effect so they understand what's going on. But it seems to me that the number one difference in your world versus almost every other industry is you've got a perishable good, right? As soon as the cruise ship leaves the dock, the bed is empty. Or as soon as the airplane leaves the ground, the seat is empty.
Yep.
And so that is a challenge for you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And one of the interesting things is from a customer service perspective or from a sales and marketing perspective, sometimes if the price starts fluctuating more, there can be a little bit of uncertainty about that. Oh well, if the price goes up, are people still going to book it? Or if the price goes down, are people going to ask for a refund? Or are they going to get upset that the product's got cheaper? And what I say to people is, if you've ever been to happy hour in the USA, that's revenue management. Restaurants do revenue management. It might not be as clear as an airline changing the price each day. But if you go to a bar between 3 and 5, you generally get a discount compared to if you dine at 7 o'clock at night. Now, you don't find restaurants doing a surcharge at 7 o'clock at night, but they're making it cheaper during different times. You go to a movie theatre and the matinee performance in the afternoon is cheaper than if you go on a Saturday or Friday night. So, there's other consumer products and there's other consumer experiences doing revenue management pricing out there, but it may not just be as apparent as it is within travel. And then I find within it as well that different travel brands have got different ways of handling it. And I reference, the airlines as well coming out of COVID. They've also been doing revenue management and pricing strategy through the changing in their loyalty programs. Delta's got itself into a mess in the last week or so over its change to its loyalty program. That's all pricing and revenue management. Yeah, you're not changing the price of the ticket flying from LA to New York, but fundamentally you're changing the overall price and the value perception to the consumer, whether you do that through a loyalty program or whether you do that through the price of the airline ticket. And I think that's one of the big differences between us and some other consumer products out there as well.
Yeah, I think I agree that a lot of companies are doing dynamic pricing, and I guess if you think about a bar and happy hour, you've got a chair there, and if that chair is empty, that really is a perishable good, right? You didn't have someone sitting there drinking, even though I've never really thought of it that way before, right? That truly is perishable. And so it would be interesting. One of the things I do all the time is I look at different industries and I see what they do for pricing. And then I say, well, how does that apply over here? How does that apply over there? And why is that working? And why isn't that working? Have you seen any really fascinating pricing techniques from other industries or other perishable good industries where you could say, oh, that would work really nicely in cruise lines or in a space that I'm working in?
Yeah. So I think of the quick service restaurant model as well. I think of somebody like Chipotle. Chipotle bring in a particular burrito that's only available for a limited time, right? And so, and they do an upcharge for it. So, I just had one earlier. The carne asada is delicious, but it's more money than the regular steak. It's a form of pricing and revenue management. I think within travel, that's something which is harder to do. So, for a ship, it's very hard to suddenly pick the ship up and move it to another part of the globe and to offer something else. It's very hard if you've got a hotel in the middle of New York, you can't pick the hotel up and move it. So, if you think back to the last couple of years, and I used to be in vacation rentals before this current role, you would find within vacation rentals that you had some destinations that did very well during COVID, beaches, mountain resorts, smaller towns and what have you. Yet your inner cities and your downtowns there was a lot lower demand. So everyone started buying vacation rentals in, Tennessee and the Smoky Mountains and what have you, and the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And then this year people have been freaking out, and it's been all over social media about this Airbnb bust and how occupancy and pricing's down. So I think within travel and hospitality, because the asset's kind of fixed, it's harder to move it. It's harder to come out with a new product very, very quickly for that limited time. It's a lot harder to do. But it's an interesting concept. I mean, I've seen a couple of travel companies. Yeah.
Do you know what came to my mind? What jumped to my mind when you were talking about the burrito, and then you said, is there a limited time offer we could offer in a cruise ship? And I don't know if this really drives business or not, but I often hear people who are popular saying, we're putting on a cruise on this day, come join our cruise. And in a way, that's a limited time offer. You're going to go cruise with someone that you like, you listen to. And so you could imagine that is, potentially more expensive, or we're not giving discounts because they're going, not because they really want to cruise, but because they want to hang out with someone that they follow.
Yeah, and it does happen. I mean, it can be a little bit challenging operationally. So, for example, Virgin Voyages have got a partnership with Jennifer Lopez. Well, you're on a ship with 2,000 odd other people. It's not like J-Lo is going to meet 2,000 people in a day, right? But yeah, that concept of those extra experiences is something which the travel industry continues to redefine. And whether that is meeting J-Lo, or I've seen ones, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. I've seen ones where you go on a cruise and you get to meet former Green Bay Packer players. So, I've seen different cruises out there that are doing that. I think an area of interest for it as well is when you offer those more exclusive experiences, if it's too broad, then you're going to get a guest impact. And, go back to the airlines and, if you go to an airport lounge, they're heaving because so many people now got access to the lounge. And now they're finding ways of increasing the pricing of the lounges to lower the demand. And so it's interesting in travel when you do try and do those one-off opportunities to get a higher price point, you've got to be careful that it really, really is exclusive and it isn't so broad, because then you can create too much demand. And, the flip side, not to go on too much longer over it, is Disney and the Star Wars Hotel. It's an interesting business case for pricing managers about how Disney built out this fantastic product for the Star Wars Hotel, charged thousands of dollars a night, and then has had to close it, in a very short time period because they couldn't get the revenues that they were expecting.
Yeah, so I haven't researched that a lot, but wouldn't you say that it was simply overpriced? I mean, I would say that it was a phenomenal idea. It added value. They could get a margin above and beyond what an average hotel would be in the Disney space, but they're charging 4 or 5 times an average hotel in a Disney space. And I'm not sure that people could say it's not worth that much more.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's something which, if you think of some other pricing people have got, the quick service restaurant model, they've got some products where they've got a very small margin between the cost of the actual menu item and the cost they're selling it at. And it was interesting reading up about this where, there was a higher cost base because they were, a lot of the staff were actors and they were paying them a decent wage, and the amount of staff that were involved in producing this Star Wars experience. And so I always think when it comes to pricing as well, even when you're more on the revenue management side and you're looking at your supply and demand patterns, you do have to have an awareness of the overall cost basis as well, because it can be quite easy, if you're not careful, to overprice, just like Disney do. The flip side is it's quite easy to, unless you've got a handle on the data, it's quite easy to underprice too, and like the airline lounges have, and then you've got too many people in the lounge.
Yeah, so I buy that completely. What comes to my mind is most companies, when they're building brand new products, really should be focused on what's the experience, what's the price, what's the product, and then can I build it for that? Right. So it isn't, hey, this is what it cost me after I built this, so I need to charge this much money. It's really, should I ever have gone into this business in the first place? Did that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
you brought up the lounges several times lately, and you brought up the lounges several times lately, and I want to know more about what you know, mostly because I travel a lot and I sit in those lounges, and they truly have gotten way more crowded than they used to be. Now, it doesn't feel like they lowered the price, or did they lower the price?
So I think they've lowered the price from the point of view that suddenly you had more co-branded credit cards. And so you had more people with offers out there that, if you spend X thousands of dollars, you suddenly got X thousands of points, and therefore you qualified. And so I've noticed it where they've started to reduce it. They've started to try and reduce the demand now by charging for a guest, while some lounges used to be able to bring in a guest for free. or they're upping the qualification now of the number of points you need to earn per year to get access to the lounge. And so it's not, so it's a different pricing side of it. It's more about how so many people now are buying up on the aeroplane, combined with the amount of credit card offers out there as well. That's creating too much demand compared to the number of people who can staff the airport lounge at any one time, and then the capacity of it. And it goes back into the hotels in downtown major cities. You couldn't pick up the hotel during COVID and stick it on the beach. Well, you can't build an airport lounge very quickly to cope with the demand. And so it's going to be an interesting case about how do airlines effectively find ways of charging guests more so that they're reducing the demand without upsetting the most loyal guests. And I think that is something where it's really easy as a pricing person to look at the numbers, but then forget about the customer service and the guest experience as well, and the guest impact. Because if you're not careful, short term, you can raise your pricing and it looks good on your balance sheet. But if you upset too many of your loyal guests and your loyal customers and they don't return, then, you're increasing prices a mirage, because 2 years later, you don't have the demand anymore that you were expecting.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, is that we oftentimes take the short-term gain and miss out on the long-term situation, problem, however we want to look at that. How do you, one of the things I always ask, I'm sure by now my listeners know this, I always ask for what is it that you're passionate about. One of the things you said was bringing pricing and revenue management to new organizations. And I find that fascinating. How do you bring revenue management? Is it you're walking in the door and someone just isn't doing it today? And so how do you convince them this is something we need to do, and we need to get more people on board thinking this way?
Yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy to go in with, a load of numbers and a load of spreadsheets or a PowerPoint deck and walk people through it. But if people aren't used to the idea of regular price changes or different revenue management techniques, whether, upselling X or Y, you really have got to spend time listening to the people in the business about how things are working right now. And you've got to take them on a journey. And, one of the interesting things that I had was at Princess, I was involved in the commercial strategy when we started opening up our offices out in Asia. And so that's a very different market than what we were used to in North America and the UK. And then suddenly you're operating in a market that isn't used to significant price changes, and you're working with people who are brand new. And so we spent a lot of time agreeing what the key benchmark was for success. So we spent a lot of time on that. And then we spent a lot of time essentially talking to people and listening and building out a strategy that doesn't sound overwhelming. So it got to the point of, right, we need these number of people to book a cruise this week. We need these number of people to book a cruise next week. And at the end of the month, did we get the target for the month? Oh, we got the target. Fantastic. Okay. Can we carry on getting the target next month? Great. But if we didn't get the target, okay, was the target unrealistic? Why didn't we get the number of people we were expecting to book? Is it because somebody else is cheaper? Is it because of the economy? Whatever it is. And then refining it so that you're constantly kind of refining and reforecasting the target in terms of how many bookings you want. So how many guests you want purchasing your products, and then your average revenue for your products as well, and keeping that in lockstep with each other. So it's that constant communication, that constant refinement, so that people feel motivated. Because I mentioned the AI thing as well. I think sometimes for people who aren't used to pricing managers or revenue management people, they think that we can wave a magic wand. And as you know, like we can't produce demand out of thin air, and we can't produce higher margins out of thin air. We have to take people on the journey.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to ask, isn't everything that you just described what AI is supposed to do for us?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I've been involved in projects where we've had pricing algorithms, and it's great when it works. If you've got that historical information and your price elasticity, you change you change your price by X percentage up or down, and you're going to either get more demand or less demand. But, you know, that's incredibly challenging in travel and hospitality since COVID, because the demand patterns are all over the place. You know, there's a lot of travel companies where they had to cancel people, but they tried to cling on to those people's money. So essentially, hey, if you stick with us, you can come with us later on. And the demand patterns are all over the place when it comes to hotel and vacation rentals, because people weren't staying in the cities, so staying in the mountains and the beaches. And then demand patterns are all over the place with the airlines, because it depends on which part of the globe opened earlier or later. And so our historical booking patterns aren't as predictable, and neither are the price and elasticity models as they are now, because it's going to take a while for COVID and then inflation to settle through the system before I think people can really trust pricing algorithms again. I think people are going to have to really keep an eye on them and put in those, put in some fail-safe, whether that's looking at it daily, whether that's building some kind of coding in the AI that says, okay, you can do X amount, and then you've got to stop and it's got to be reviewed before you go and do X amount of price changes again, if that makes sense.
Yep. That was actually, I'm sure I knew that, but I never thought through the fact that when we have a huge shock to the market, like the pandemic, then AI essentially doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Because it's never been trained on it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're back to manual. Can we think through this? Are we making good decisions? So that was really that was an interesting observation. So, hey, Neil, we're running out of time. By the way, we're also having tech issues, but I think we're going to get over that. Let me ask the last question though. What is one piece of pricing advice you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Don't assume that everyone else in your business understands what you're doing. So take the time to listen to other people and take the time to communicate and collaborate with the other people in your teams and the other stakeholders in your business, and take them on the journey.
Yeah, I absolutely love that answer. I think that we don't listen enough to other people in other departments. Mm-hmm. And so the more we listen, the more we can actually help them achieve their goals. Yeah. And they'll like us and help us achieve our goals. So I think that makes a ton of sense.
Definitely.
Neil, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants
You're
to
so welcome.
how can they do that?
Sure. Find me on LinkedIn, Neil Fitzgerald. People are welcome to email me. It's NEILF, all lowercase, so NEILF @expeditions.com.
Excellent. And to our listeners, thank you so much for your time today. If you enjoyed this, would you please leave us a rating and a review? And if you have any questions or comments about the podcast or pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.